Atapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Harun Nefer. This is Kasank Ma Keparu with another video for you. In this video, I want to talk about how to dissolve the ego and save the world. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications when I go live or when I upload new videos. And also consider becoming a Patreon supporter. You can do so for as little as $1 or $5 per month, and you'll get exclusive access to video tutorials on the esoteric, how to perform a ritual, how to charge your crystals, how to work with divination or oracle cards, and how to do the practice of magical evocation, invoking spirits to help you. So it's all there's all access you can get as a Patreon member. So I want to thank you all for tuning in today. And I want to talk a little bit about this subject matter, which is kind of very important, which is how to dissolve the ego and save the world. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about my new ebook, the new Capital Ankh, which is available. So you can order it now by clicking the link in the download. Clicking the link in the description box there at the bottom. And if you see behind me, I have the sun, Ra, shining down upon me. If I tilt my head a bit, you'll see it goes, wow, that's really awesome, you know? Imagine being an ancient Kemet and seeing the sun shine down upon you every day. And we know that our ancestors spoke using allegories, puns. So when they refer to the sun, this is their way of speaking about the Son of Man, you know, the Jesus figure, the Christ, the risen one, because the sun would rise in the morning, you know, the resurrected one, the resurrected from the dead, because the sun would rise in the east and set in the west. So it would rise, and that was the resurrection, and the death would come during the nightfall. So that's very important to understand that, because if you understand that our ancestors spoke in allegories, you understand the Bible is a book of metaphors and stories. Very powerful meanings, but if you read it from a very literal perspective, a left-brain perspective, then you actually think it's a history book, and that's not necessarily true. It contains layers upon layers of very deep and profound occult information. The book is based on astrotheology, meaning it speaks about the stars, which is why Jesus is you see in the story of Jesus, it refers a lot to water, being a fisherman, or you're seeing fish, Pisces, the sign of Pisces, you know? And that's, the Bible is replete with those metaphors. But I digress. So get the new Capital Ankh, because it really gets into how do you use magic, use your powers to enhance and improve your life. And I take a very straightforward and simple approach to it, because I don't go too much into like things like ceremonial magic, herbal magic, those type of things. I wanted to understand magic on a very fundamental level so that I can practice it, because we are living in a day and time of when you're faced with a lot of distractions and you're constantly hustling, bustling, and on the go. And you don't have time to do maybe a full blown out ritual or to create a really large, elaborate altar. So what can you do? So I've incorporated that into the new Capital Ankh. So not only does it show you step by step the process of manifesting things in your life and changing your life, but it also gives you an idea and understanding of how the ruling elite came into power, how they were able to take the occult information that their ancestors authored and use that to their benefit, to imprison the planet into a certain psyche, a certain frequency of thinking. And the majority of the population of the planet, whatever the 6 or 7 billion people on the planet, they're now caught in a matrix of thinking. And this has caused a lot of death, destruction, and poverty and disease on the planet. But we can save the planet by tuning back into the knowledge of our ancestors. And that book, The New Capital Ankh, is the key to manifesting your reality. So get that book if you haven't already got it. It's the latest version because I've updated it twice so far. So this one's the last update that you can get, and it's really powerful. It's really profound. And it's a nice book. It was graphically, it's a nice book to look at. So this is something that you want to hold on to and collect. And it took a number of years for me to gain enough knowledge, to accumulate enough knowledge to be able to put into this ebook. And it's kind of a shortcut for you. So you don't have to go through the trials and errors that I did as a magician to learn this stuff. It's all in that book, it's spelled out for you in plain English. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to enhance and improve your life. Okay, so get that book. Last thing I'm gonna say about that, it's I believe $39.95. Download it today and get started. Now let's talk about dissolving the ego. One of the things that I learned very early on in my spiritual practice was the practice of hypnosis, and I became very good at hypnosis. And this is something that our ancient ancestors have been practicing, but they call it trance work, right? And trance work was done in two forms. Number one, the practice of magical invocation, the practice of magical evocation. Invocation is when you are being possessed by your energy or spirit. Evocation is when you're actually invoking the spirit to come into physical manifestation. And there are different ways of doing that. Now, what I wanted to do when I started early on is utilizing trance state and the practice of hypnosis to go and reach alternate states of being, alternate states of consciousness. But something profound happened in my first session. I had ordered a hypnosis program and did the exercise, not realizing the ramifications of what would happen. So when I did the exercise, what happened was I had reached such a high state of oneness. My ego dispersed, and I was conscious of only being conscious. Let me say that again. Conscious of only being conscious. That is the absence of thoughts, the absence of labels and definitions. That is when you are, what we call as amen, at peace, energy at rest, at peace. So you are amen, peace with all things. Or she said one with all things, but energy at rest, at peace. Now, I didn't intend to go into that state. It just happened. And I was only aware of what had happened when I came out of the state. I could recall what was going on. And the only thing I could recall was being conscious of being conscious. That was it. No more, no less. And there was a state of abundance, meaning that you couldn't take away and you couldn't add to. It was complete. And I realized something that was very, very profound at that point. So if you guys can do me a favor and just make sure you're hitting the like button to get the likes up, because it looks like we're going to have 3 likes. Oh, that's really not good. All right. So we want the videos to go viral and get the information out there to the general population. What I realized was something that was so deep and profound that it really started me on my magical journey and trying to understand spirituality, magic, the occult, but also more important, trying to master the art of hypnosis. And as I said before in previous videos, I began to be really good at hypnosis. And then I began to use that same skill as for trance induction. What do I mean by that? To go into alternate states of consciousness and do astral travel and to interact with other interdimensional beings. Now, the thing about this is, very early on, because I'm originally from Charlottesville, Virginia, and we stayed in the South Bronx very early on. And at that time, rap and hip hop was starting out. And I began to see something that I didn't like. And that was a form of music that was feeding the animal spirit, the Sahu spirit, the ego. As Freud said, the id, ego, and the superego. What the music was doing that I saw was getting closer and closer and closer to an occult practice or a magical practice of feeding the ego. And lo and behold, years later, we see the fruition of that as to that whether we want to realize it or not, many of the noted rappers, let's say, for example, like Jay-Z, 50 Cent, and all those, you have to understand who they are. Those individuals, and Nas and all that, are reincarnated. So they were, in a past life, magicians. They were magicians. And they've reincarnated into this life to resurrect the ancient knowledge, but they are now doing it in a very skewed and a very subversive manner. And to the point of where I don't think they're fully 100% aware of what they're doing, because it is very much feeding and nurturing the ego. And the ego, I define, is anything that creates the barrier between you and the oneness with all things and the realization of who you are, which is consciousness. When you feed that ego, the ego is the identification with what we call in the culture, the person. The person, the physical being, the Geb. So if I'm identifying with the person, and the person comes with a label, the person comes with nationality, the person comes with a race, the person comes with a wardrobe, the person comes with glasses or contacts. So the more I identify with the person, the more I remove myself from source. The more I'm not able to now go into that state of oneness, amen, or peace, amen, where I can experience being conscious of being conscious. Because when you have that experience, then you realize that there is only the one. There's only you having a holographic experience, an illusionary experience, a Maya experience. And the trouble that these rappers are causing in the world today through the vibrational frequency that they're putting out there is that they are centering people in the person, the ego. And the music is nurturing that spirit and is creating a pendulum or an ergobore that's becoming stronger and stronger and stronger and taking the planet from the identification of the true essence of our being, which is divine in nature. Now, I'm not going to say that these rappers and people are evil, that they're bad. They're doing what they're doing, all right? And we all made an agreement to come here and to deal with this. This was our soul contract. So this is the scenario that we're playing out. But what I am trying to tell you is that when I started studying music, I started studying it on a very different level. I studied binaural beats. I started studying subliminal messages underneath the music. I started studying isotonic frequencies that can now either enhance intelligence, bring you to a state of peace, to connect you with source. This information is readily available, and you can listen to these tracks and have such profound experiences. If you're a child or you're not doing well in school, there is binaural beats that will help you to increase your intelligence level. Why mainstream is not using it? Because they don't want the majority of the population to become intelligent, to become Einsteins, to become Imhoteps. You understand? They have to retard the progress of the planet. The only way to do that is to retard your intelligence, to suppress your connection with source. Because when you connect with source, one aspect of source is the Akashic records, or it's the Tahuti aspect. Tahuti aspect is wisdom. You can pull down wisdom and knowledge. All right, so I'm just trying to get you to understand that we're living in a very orchestrated matrix-like environment where it is constructed for us to fail, for us to not succeed. And the very music that we listen to is reinforcing our identification with the Sahu aspect or animal spirit of us. So we become more volatile, we become more emotional, we become more aggressive. This is what that music is doing. And it's not just that, it's R&B too, it's country too. So I'm not just picking on rap, but when you have music that talks about, baby, you're the one, I cannot live without you, that is a betrayal of your true essence, because I can live without you. I don't need you to be complete, because I am complete. I am source. Source is you can never add to it or take from it. It is complete. It is abundance. So when I sing things like, I can't live without you, I'm nothing without you, that is a betrayal of who you are. So I want you to think about that. It's putting out the wrong frequency. Who you are is a divine being. It's God man, God woman. Now, there are certain practices that can help you to eliminate the ego and to connect with source. The main thing that we're doing wrong is that we're breathing wrong. We're breathing using the breath technique of 666. That's the breathing technique of the animal spirit. But as I taught in my hypnosis class last week, that if you start using the breathing pattern of 4-7-8, let me say it again, 4-7-8, that is a breathing pattern that will get you to the Amen state, the peace state. And it is only with that peace state can you dissolve the ego. Now, how do we save the planet? The planet is saved by each and every one of us shifting to a different frequency, not by going out there and proselytizing about the religion, promoting the religion. You don't have to do that because you are connected to all things. And the mere fact that you have a vibrational frequency shift has everyone else going to make that same shift too, because we're all connected based on the 100 monkey principle. Research that on the Japanese mesquite monkeys that goes back into 1950s research on the behavioral studies of the Japanese monkeys. And research the goddess Ma'at that says that the interdependence and interrelationship between all things, that no one thing can exist without the other. And that when you remove one component, the entire machine or the whole cannot function properly. Seker tells us a place for everything and everything in its place. You are important. You wouldn't be here if you weren't important. Nectar, source, God, Yahweh needs you. The trick that you have to do is to stop identifying with the person, the ego, and start identifying with your true self. The self is consciousness. And the only way to do that is by, one, your breathing has to be correct, 4, 7, 8. And then now you have to start doing your meditative work to put yourself into a trance state to where you can go and experience that oneness, that consciousness of being conscious. When you experience that, then you will start to realize what is going on in the matrix, what is going on in the world. Another profound experience that I had, and the most profound experience besides the putting myself into a hypnosis state and experiencing oneness, or amen, was being removed from the matrix. I did it accidentally. It wasn't what I was intending to do. I was doing a very deep meditation state when I went into trance for about 5 hours. 5 hours. The time passed quickly because when you're into that type of state, you're in nonlinear time-space. That means you're not experiencing time and space, which are inseparable. Understand, space and time are not, they're inseparable. It's called space-time. Okay. So anyway, when I was in that experience, something happened. I removed myself from the matrix for a short period of time. And it was frightening. It was just as if you look at the movie The Matrix, one of the things they said in the movie was they don't remove people from the matrix who have reached a certain age level because they can't handle it, they'll die. I totally get that. I totally understand what they were saying. Because for that short period of time, when I was unplugged, I had nothing as a foundation to grasp. I was in the no-thingness. I was not experiencing individuality. I was not experiencing the ego. I was experiencing the no-thingness, the no-nothingness. And we know now that science is telling us that the Big Bang came out of the no-thingness. There was nothing. How can you get something from nothing? Well, they're studying that now. They're trying to explore that. Because even darkness is something. So what does no thing or nothingness looks like? And that's where I was. And when you have been brought up your entire life, for however old you are, 35 years old, 40 years old, 50, 60, and you have had a dependency upon the material world, and to have all that removed from you to where you have no foundation to firmly plant yourself upon. Can you imagine what happens to your psyche? You'll lose it. And that's what I was doing. I was like, holy crap. People said, well, what's outside of the matrix? What's outside of the matrix is the no-thingness. The only time that you will really experience that, because many people cannot get to that level of unplugging from the matrix. Very difficult. But the only other time that you will experience that is when you die. Because when you die, you are separated from the 4D realm. Some call it the 3D, the world of duality. But you are separated from the 4D realm. This is why the Buddhist monks practice no attachment to anything so they can prepare for their afterlife. Let me greet the Magi's in the chat room. Spiritual elevation, Tepu, Takia, nice to see you. Haru Nefer, Suan, namaste, Suan. Okay, is there anyone else? Let me see where we at. Where are we at? I think I got everybody. If I missed anybody, just let me know if I missed anybody. All right. Takia, I did fasting. I did a lot of Takia's asking, is fasting required? Um, Fasting is a very good thing. I used to do a lot of fasting, but it takes a toll on you. And but I do recommend it, but I would recommend it during the solstice. So yes, I do. And there's different. There's a lot of different types of fasting. Some people can do just water. Some only fast where they just drink like protein drinks. Some fast just using vegetables. So there's a lot of different ones that you can do. When I fast, the only thing I did was drink water. That was it. And I fasted during the equinox, and I did it for about 7 days. So it's going to have a profound experience, because you're going to. One thing, as I spoke about, was the Bible and all the prophets in the Bible, and they had these spiritual visions. And the way that they were able to have these spiritual visions is because they deprived themselves of certain things, whether it be oxygen or food. Because when you do those things, you tap into the right brain, and the left brain shuts down, and you start to astrally travel and go into different dimensions and realms. And this is where you'll have your visions, and you'll receive wisdom and insight. But it's very taxing on you, the physical being, which we call Geb. But I do highly recommend it. Aaron, Hetepu, glad you can join us. So if you want to experience those visions, which is close to getting yourself unplugged from the matrix, then I would recommend doing a fast. Yes, I think that's a good idea. I did the fast for about 12 every year, twice or 3 times a year for 12 years. And after that, I had had enough. I was like, oh, that's enough for me. I don't want to do that anymore. It was really, really tough. Chico, Sweezy, Hatepu. So anyway, now let me just give you the scoop on this dissolving the ego. When you try to do things like the hypnosis, or try to experience just the oneness in trance state, it may not happen the first time. It's like a muscle. You have to keep working it out until you get to a certain level of proficiency in your magical practice, to where your consciousness will withdraw into that state of source, where you connect back to source. You see, the world is in the way it is today, meaning that we are all savages. Whether you want to recognize that or not, we're very primitive, we're savages. Because if there was a power outage, a blackout, or what have you, the majority, not all, the majority of the population of the planet, the billions and billions of people on the planet, would revert back to an animal state of robbery, raping and pillaging, committing all types of atrocities. See, in ancient Kemet, in Egypt, and in the Chinese ancient dynasties, especially during the Nak people, N-A-K, you can do the research, Google that, and the culture of the Mayans, we had reached such a high state of morality that we didn't need police. We didn't need a military state. People acted in alignment with Ma'at, truth. Do you understand? But Western culture is so left-brained, they think to have truth and to live correctly, you need external intervention, external forces such as religious dogma and police. You see, when you are practicing and breathing techniques right and your meditation is right, you will become a spiritual being. You will act righteously without any commandments, without any laws. You won't need them. You will be righteous on your own, without any external measures to push you in that direction. Now, don't get it skewed now. We did have a court system. We did have punishment. But our punishment wasn't as if we were just punishing based on an emotional response, which is what the current judicial system is about. We enforce balance. You see, with Ma'at, there was 2 things that came with Ma'at. There was Tahuti, Athah. Tahuti was the measure of truth. Ma'at set the law. Tahuti says this is how you apply the law. Then when the law was broken, Ma'at would send in Harukuhuti, God of justice. That's the other aspect. And Harukuhuti's role was to bring back balance, not to punish, not to hurt, not to harm. Do you understand? Nikki Daniels, namaste. Glad you joined us. So the way that the planet can be saved and to get us back into the right vibrational frequency is for us to dissolve the ego, to dissolve the identification with the person, and understand that you are consciousness, and not to preach that on Sunday sermons, but to experience it. See, Ma'at is truth, but what is truth? Ma'at is the experiencing of truth, not truth written down, not truth in some laws, because to understand truth, you must live it. Ma'at is the living of truth. Because the right brain is experiential knowledge. It's empirical wisdom, empirical knowledge. Where the left brain is, it's just thoughts, ideas, labels, theories. You see, when you engage in the left brain, you're engaging in the ego. And what do we endeavor to do with the left brain is to continually split hairs, label, define. When I broke out of this fourth dimensional realm and experienced the Amen state, the oneness, there were no ideas of a label in my head or names or definitions. There was no thoughts. As I said, the only thought was being aware that I was conscious. There was nothing for me to interact with. There was no individuality, no individualism. We call this the subjective realm. The individualization of things is called the objective realm. So I was existing in that subjective realm and experiencing pure oneness, no ego. With the way our lives are shaped today, we're living in a matrix system that reinforces the identification with the ego. We're living in a matrix system that enforces the idea of attainment of material things because we have a scarcity mindset. We think that if we don't attain these things, that they'll go away and we won't have them anymore. But when you start getting into magical practice, you understand, especially in my ebook, A New Kepler Ankh, you start to understand that if you tap into source, you can have whatever you want by shifting to a new reality. This is why that knowledge has been kept from you. They don't want you to understand that God is abundance. What is Ma'at? Ma'at is abundance. And if you are a follower of Bashar, he defines abundance as the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. Let me say that again. It's the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. Consistency, that's another principle of Ma'at. Always having when you need it. Never lacking. Never hoarding wealth as the billionaires and gazillionaires do. Hoard wealth. Wealth is calcified at the top. And we fell for that Reaganomics when they said, give the wealth more money and they will trickle down to help the poor start businesses and things of that nature. And when they find out when they gave the wealth more money, there was no trickle down economics. The wealthy kept hoarding more wealth and didn't share, which is a principle of Ma'at, giving, seeking nothing in return. No, we don't. Ma'at Sun, Hatepu, we don't kill the ego. Remember that we're in a 3D realm. 3D realm is duality. And what is this 3D realm about? The Hegelian dialectic. That means that everything is positioned as opposites, opposing one another. There's good, there's bad, there's right, there's wrong, there's Democrat, there's Republican, there's male, there's female. No. We're not striving to eliminate anything because Sekert tells us, the goddess Sekert says, a place for everything and everything in its place. The ego is necessary to have what? To have an experience. Because without the ego, you are not having thoughts. You're not experiencing anything. So the ego is a necessary tool. But the problem that we're engaged in is our entire awareness or focus is on the ego. And that is wrong. You see, we have mistakenly thought that we are the ego. We are consciousness. We must recognize that the ego exists, and it exists for a purpose, but it is not who we are. Do you understand what I'm saying? I have a right hand. I recognize that it exists. Does that mean that I ignore the left hand? No, I understand that it is a vital component in the whole, my body. So think about that. We don't want to destroy anything. We don't want to ignore anything. We want to recognize all polar, so-called opposites, all polar opposites as essential components of the whole. The ego has its form, has its function, but it is encroaching upon our understanding and our perception of reality. Because now we just think that we are the person, and we're so caught up in that we have lost sight on the true power that we have as God men and God women. Limited species. Okay, let me comment on what Limited said. He said, my ego is stubborn asshole. And I'm going to end with that comment. He is exactly right. You see, the ego, as I said before, is Sahu. It is the animal spirit. It will fight you tooth and nail. It does not want to die. It has self-preservation at heart. And you're feeding it every day. Remember when I talked about the rap music, how it nurtures the animal spirit. It nurtures the ego. It becomes stronger to a point where it controls you. Oh, I got to get that gold chain. Oh, I got to get that car. Oh, I got to get that bitch. I'll be complete if I have that bitch, that car, and that gold chain. No, I need more. I need that house. I need that private plane. That's the ego. Bottomless pit. Never be filled. So engage in your magical practices every day. Get that ebook, The New Capital Ankh, that'll start you out. So that you can now identify with your true nature as a divine being, as consciousness. And when you do that, when each and every one of you do that, you'll help to change the vibrational frequency of the planet, and you'll help to save the planet. Because we have been bombarded by social engineering, which is keeping us trapped in the ego, trapped in the person. And that was the story of Asar and Aset. When Haru did the battle against Aset, he was really doing battle against himself, his own ego. Set represented his ego, his animal spirit. Do you understand that? So you're not just meditating because it sounds good, it sounds esoteric, it's cool to be spiritual, I'm going on a spiritual retreat. You're meditating to re-experience your true nature. I'm going to say that again. Re-experience your true nature. Stop feeding the animal spirit. Stop feeding the ego. How do you feed the ego? As in the great I Ching oracle called the Way, or I Ching. The C is changeable with the J. It is really the book of the Tao in the 27th hexagram. Get that book, the I Ching. 27th hexagram talks about nurturing. What do you nurture in your life? Well, most of us nurture the ego, the animal spirit. Some of us nurture it more than others. I talked about on a previous broadcast, this is going way back, I may be dating myself here, but the Japanese created this little game, and it was so small you can put it on your keychain. And it was a virtual pet, and the pet would ring every now and then for you to feed it, give it virtual food, or for you to play with it. And if you didn't do these things, the pet would die. Well, that's your ego. you are continually listening to the wrong type of music. You are saying things verbally that betray the true essence of who you are, therefore feeding the animal spirit, such as things like, I'm afraid of this, I fear this, that person gets on my nerve, I hate that person. That's feeding the ego. Instead, focus on the self, the oneness. You see, if we all would experience that state of Amen, there would be no crime. There would be no hate, no jealousy. And I'm not talking about a fantasy world. We achieved that in ancient times. We did achieve that. But it was destroyed and taken away by the ruling elite, the oligarchy, so that they could rule the planet. But we can get back to that. We've just got to start practicing the ways of our ancestors and get rid of these ideas of selfishness. And you listen to the music, it's all about that. It's all about acquiring material things. It's all about doing drugs, the ego. I don't participate in that stuff. I knew very early on where it was headed. So I want to thank all of you Magi's for dropping by today. I hope this message resonates with you. If you get an opportunity, please donate to the channel. The link is below. And also order the ebook, The New Kepler Ankh. And until my next broadcast, this is Kasank Ma'at Keperu, son of Ma'at and Judy. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next broadcast, experience the oneness of Amen.